Hello, today I'm here to talk a little bit about Star Wars The Old Republic, a game I've been quite fond of over the years despite many bumps along the road, and today we'll be talking about a couple more such bumps. No MMO is perfect, but this really is a game I'm extremely fond of. It did so much right from the beginning within the game. I feel like there's a lot of things that have gone wrong in the kind of management of and exterior kind of periphery of the game. But the game itself, being inside it, is great. I think this is a really good MMO, despite being a lead suspect in the gruesome murder of Star Wars Galaxies. And specifically, I'm going to be talking about Australian servers, which is something that I'm quite passionate about in general as an MMO fan and an Australian. So we're going to dive into that, but first I'd like to go over a little bit of the history of Star Wars The Old Republic and Australian servers and how we got to where we are today. So the game didn't launch with Australian servers in 2011. I thought it then, and I still think it now. I think that's a mistake. I think if you've got EA money and it's a Star Wars property, I think you can safely invest and launch servers with the game from the outset, and I think that's the best way to do it, because otherwise, if you do it any other way, then you're going to be moving players around from server to server, spot to spot, and you're just causing chaos, and things just aren't going to feel settled for this whole region of players from the outset. Credit where credit's due, though, it wasn't actually long before they did launch some Australian servers in 2012. The problem there is they didn't last at all. They only lasted a little over a year, from what I can remind myself here. Yeah, 2013, Australian servers to be shut down due to low population issues. That was the significant reason stated at the time. And honestly, it checks out. At the time I was playing, and you could say pickup groups were not popping. Though, you know, the population was split at that time. I believe there was a PvP server, PvE, and maybe even a role-playing server. So population was divided between multiple servers, which didn't help. But ultimately, yeah, BioWare made the decision to send everyone back over to the US servers. And fair enough, sometimes it doesn't work out. But that's just to say that long-term Australian Star Wars The Old Republic players have been through this before. There's a bit of deja vu going on here. Since then, since 2013, the game has certainly had its ups and downs. And of course, recently, last year, management of the game has transferred from BioWare to Broadsword, which is considered a kind of smaller, slightly more ragtag bunch, though I don't know how big BioWare is these days, to be honest. They've certainly taken a few hits in the EA years. And I feel like people don't really know whether to be optimistic or pessimistic about this Broadsword thing. Many believe that this is a sign that the game has been put into maintenance mode, that there won't be many more big patches or expansions or updates, and that the main task of Broadsword will just be to keep the servers on, keep the game alive enough that people can keep spending money in the cartel market, which certainly still makes a lot of money from everything that EA seems to say. So far, I'm not that pessimistic. I'm still trying to be hopeful, and there have been some statements from Broadsword. Actually, let me just... Yeah, like some of these letters by Keith Koenig, who's the executive producer at Broadsword. I get a sense of passion out of some of these letters and things they've written and live streams they've done. I've gotten a sense that there are still passionate developers working on the game. But, you know, passion is one thing, concrete evidence of, you know, updates and changes is another. So only time will tell. Which brings us to just a couple of months ago at the end of 2023, when suddenly, out of the blue, or at least it was out of the blue for me, they launched a brand new server located in Sydney, Australia. So this was quite unexpected to see suddenly an Australian server pop up for a game that, you know, has been around quite a while now, and certainly isn't at the height of its popularity. And I don't feel like we know in detail the exact reasons why this has even happened yet. But I think one aspect is certainly that the game has transferred to cloud servers in the last year, and I believe they're hosting on Amazon. I could be wrong, but on Amazon's cloud network, which means it's just easier and cheaper for them to spin up a server in whatever location Amazon has servers than it was in the past. And as surprised and delighted as I was by this development, and they're good servers for us in Australia, I'll show you. I've got a ping here of 22 milliseconds, which is unusual for us in Australia if you're watching from overseas. But yeah, as delighted as I was, I certainly felt some trepidation, had some concerns, and those concerns are remaining to this day. There were a few things that happened, or rather didn't happen, in November with the server launch that I thought just really weren't ideal. One is that it wasn't advertised. I feel like if you are launching a new server in a new region where you didn't have one for a big MMO, then it's really, if you want it to be successful, you really just do need to get the word out there, get the message out there, and find some players. I am in the bag for this kind of thing. I'm a fan of the game, who hasn't played in a while, but a fan of the game and an Australian server lover. And I only happened to stumble across it by accident only a couple of days before the server was launching. And I really think they could have done a better job there. A part of it is that the server launch wasn't linked with any significant new update or expansion, which I really think would have been a smart way to do it. It's the way that Final Fantasy XIV and even World of Warcraft launched their Australian servers when they did. They both coincided with big expansion launches. So it was a big event, lots of players came in, and it all felt exciting, and there was, plenty of population, no population concerns from the beginning. And the beginning is just the worst time to have any population concerns. But we'll come back to that. The other thing is that Star Wars: The Old Republic doesn't have any cross-server tech yet. There's no kind of pick-up groups where you can link up, go to Group Finder and join up with people from other servers, which, again, is a thing that games like World of Warcraft have. So if one region does have a lower population, it's not a massive deal. You can still do most of the content absolutely fine. Sometimes you'll just be hopping into a shard or a node that is in another region, and your ping will just jump up a bit for that round, that match, that dungeon, that piece of content, and then go right back down when you jump back into your own world. And I think that's smart technology for MMOs, particularly big ones. But yeah, Star Wars: The Old Republic doesn't have any of that yet. So these are just all reasons, things bumping around in my head when I see that they're launching an Australian server, that make me go, I love this, but I don't want my heart broken again. Now, here's the other wrinkle. So here's the announcement of the server. We've been wanting to spin up a server in this region for quite some time now, which it's again, just so lovely to be thought of. So I really admire Broadsword or BioWare or whoever started this decision for, thinking of us down under, that we like the game and like a low ping. Blah, blah, blah. Actually, I'll skip that. This is an exciting opportunity for all players in the Asian Pacific region, whether you're current, returning, or brand new. Shae Vizla will be a new server with no transfers available at launch. This will allow us to monitor the health of the server's economy and simultaneously provide a space for players who want to start on a clean slate or who have never played before. In essence, opening a new server this way will feel like a new launch. And so what they're saying there is that this new server, Shae Vizla, is a fresh start server. And this complicates things, because unless you've been living under a rock, you'll know that for quite some time, Star Wars: The Old Republic has had some economy issues, in-game economy. And there's been, just to put it basically, a lot of inflation, and a lot of players are very unhappy about it. So all of the existing servers in the US and Europe are suffering with this existing issue of inflation in the economy. Now, I won't go into that too much, but I know that personally there is one thing that I would blame largely for this problem, and it's the cartel market, the microtransactions shop inside the game. I just feel like when that was introduced, that was the start of the beginning of the end of any form of, logical economy in the game. I can get just a ridiculous amount of in-game cosmetics and boosts and all sorts of items for, a few thousand cartel coins. For me, that's just a huge part of the reason why problems like this start in MMOs. It's also a big reason why they, often don't get fixed, I think. The fact that people are still just spending money in the game because it's easier to buy things with real money than with the in-game currency. I think that can easily desensitize. That can de-incentivize the developers from fixing the problem with any haste. And I know it sounds like Broadsword are really, trying hard to fix that problem that they've been given. But still, if you're EA and the money keeps rolling in, how bad of a problem is it to have? But back to this Australian server. So it's been going for a couple months now, hasn't had transfers, but it's almost time to open transfers, and they've started talking about it, and now they're in a pickle. Because basically they've got two groups of players on this new server. They've got, and that's simplifying it a lot. Of course, there are many different groups and many different opinions out there, and we'll look at some in a moment. But two main groups. One is this group of fresh start players from all around the world. They've been playing the game on other servers. They've been dissatisfied with problems with the inflation in the economy, and they wanted a back to basics Star Wars: The Old Republic experience on a brand new fresh server with none of those problems. So they've come over to this server, they don't mind the high ping that they have to put up with, and they're just enjoying that experience. The other group is all the players in and near Australia, and they are enjoying the low ping. Now, the other factor here that I think is important is that this is a pretty old game at this point. It boggles the mind, but it's actually older than Star Wars Galaxies ever got during its lifetime, which breaks my mind a bit. But because of that, it's safe to say, I think, that a large portion of the players who currently play Star Wars: The Old Republic have already played it a fair bit in the past. There are always new players, of course, but now it's got, like 12 years of established players of various levels, those who come and go, those who have gone forever, those who are, sticking around for the long haul. They are the large part of the population. So I want you to keep that in mind, how much players have invested in the sense of time and effort into their characters that they've been role-playing for years, and consider how much of a story-based RPG game this really is. I mean, the fourth pillar is story, as BioWare always used to say. And this is a game where you spend hundreds of hours getting attached to your characters who are in an arc on a developing story. I know myself, my main character, an Imperial agent, I feel so connected to. How can you spend that much time role-playing a character and not be so connected to everything about them? And this game has so many legacy features built in which reward you for building a strong stable of characters and keeping them all on the same server, and you get benefits across each of them, things they can share, abilities in your legacy and such. I know most of you watching this have probably played the game and you're already aware of all this, but I'm reminding you because these are all the things that are going to be very important for players to bring with them if they are going to move to a different server. And this is just such a strong part of what MMOs are. It's persistence, things persist, you achieve things and they stay with you. And it's such a shame if anything is lost just for these technical reasons of having to transfer between servers. But while all of these Asian Pacific players with all of this legacy are anxious to transfer it all to the new server, we've got this other group, the fresh start players from around the world who are on the server, and they want quite the opposite. Many of them would be happy, I think, if transfers never opened and that it was a fresh start server indefinitely. And maybe this server wouldn't hit that kind of inflation point that other existing servers have. And so here we are where Broadsword is trying to appease both of these groups at the same time, and for the most part, from my perspective, they're managing to upset everybody. So server transfers are set to start with the next patch, and here are the requirements that Broadsword have come up with. Characters will be required to have 2 million or less credits. If you try to transfer a character that has more than that amount, it won't work. For the first 30 days after transfers open, subscribers will get 16 free transfers if they have been a subscriber since the APAC launch in November for at least 90 consecutive days. Now, I'm not sure exactly how they came up with this one. It's quite an odd one. I've been trying to think how you reach this requirement, and it boggles me a bit, really. It means that anyone like myself who has been waiting for transfers to open and has been spending that time unsubscribed will not be able to transfer characters over for free. You can do it paid, of course. You can. There is a 50% discount if you want to pay to transfer characters, but again, I don't know why we're putting so many restrictions on it. And particularly this 90 consecutive days is really going to limit who can and wants to transfer characters over to the server. When really I would have thought Broadsword would be so keen to get this server alive, to inject as many people as possible, to make it easy for people to jump in and to move over their existing characters to this server and get playing on it. So I mean, personally, it's the 90-day consecutive thing that miffs me a bit, because it's the reason that I can't transfer my characters. But while many people are upset about that, many are also upset about this 2 million credit limit. I mean, it doesn't bother me, but I'm I'm a bit of a poor player even on all my mains. But if I did have 1 billion credits, I'd be upset too. And again, a key joy of MMOs is that these are persistent worlds, and you shouldn't have to lose a whole bunch of credits that you've accumulated over time and effort just to move over to a server where you've got a lower ping. I don't think we should equate these two things. I don't think you should have to give up something to achieve a lower ping. I think that should be gifted to anyone who is able to access it. And again, this is all just to address a problem for fresh start players who, in an ideal world, should not be finding solace from inflation woes on a server based in Sydney, Australia. And the credit limit concerns from players go a little bit further than that, because due to all of these inflation woes on other servers, the game has been adjusted over months and years with this inflation in mind. So some things cost way more than they used to. And on a server without inflation, you're actually going to have some difficulties paying for certain things. I've got some comments here that speak to this. Here's just a random comment from Cactus on the Shae Vizla Discord. And they say, initially many players like me also joined as Shae Vizla would have zero inflation, but this has turned out to be more of a hassle than a hurdle. It takes hours and hours to get basically anything done. Moreover, it completely makes sense that people will not join Shae Vizla on purpose, as it's simply they don't want to grind everything back on their home server, which was taken away from them to begin with in the first place. And I've been out of the raiding game for a while, but it certainly sounds like evidently raiding costs and just gear repair while raiding has become a lot more expensive over time, and people worry that these credit limits are just going to make doing things like raiding on the new server more of a turn-off. And that's, again, just the last thing we need. The most important thing at the moment to make this server successful should be encouraging everybody to come to the new server. And I'll give you a sense of some of the general criticisms that are flying on Reddit and the forums. Here on Reddit, wait, so because I let my sub drop off for a week or so in January, I'm not eligible to get a free transfer? And over here, someone says, I would have continued to be subscribed if I knew I'd get free transfers. And that's so true. A large part of this is just communication. If Broadsword could communicate clearly, more clearly and more early about these things, then there would be less of a problem. They didn't send out emails about the APAC server opening until mid-December. This means that returning APAC players are not eligible for free transfers. You had to have already been playing and subbed on or before the server opened. Third time they've kicked us in the teeth in regards to server handling. Yep, Star Wars The Old Republic and Australians have a troubled past. Only announcing now that you need to be a subscriber in the past as a requirement is so stupid. But then here's a sense of the people on the other side, the fresh start players. Glad they're restricting credits. As much as that sucks for people that want to make it their new home, it would kill the economy. And it is interesting that there's this dichotomy of what players value more. The people who value the in-game economy more, and the people who value the lag, the latency, maybe the combat, the technical gameplay more. And it's very interesting. Over here on the forum, someone says, surely the devs can't be serious. 2 million per toon, that's 32 million total. What an absolute joke. All to protect the vocal minority who play the GTN. And those who are talking about the importance of the economy could be a vocal minority. It is hard for us to tell on the outside. I'm sure Broadsword would have a better idea of how many players really think what, or I hope they do. APAC players want to play on our own regional server without these absurd restrictions. I agree with that. And we will see what happens in the next few days. This could all be course corrected for sure. I really think there will be some level of adjustment, of course correction, perhaps an increase in the amount of credits that are allowed on character transfer, perhaps a lowering of that time that you need to be subscribed before you can use those free transfers. But the thing is, when these things happen, these breakdowns in communication between the developers and the community, on some level, you know, a certain amount of damage is already done. And it can take a lot of time and a lot of goodwill and communication to regain trust. Personally, I've been burned so many times by the Old Republic in so many ways over the years that I'm probably at a healthy remove at this point, and I care just because I like the game, and I do want the best for it, and I want the developers to make good decisions, especially around an Australian server that make it healthy. And it just kind of sucks to see it kind of fall into similar mistakes as the past. And I am worried about a repeat of, you know, over a decade ago, and the server just not having enough population and getting brought down again. And it's currently Sunday evening here, and we've got 18 on Republic Fleet and 29 on Imperial Fleet, which really, it could be worse, but that's not looking great for the health of these servers. But the other question is, at this point, does a really low population matter? How much does it matter to Broadsword? Is it possible to keep a server going with just a tiny population? I mean, of all MMOs, this one is geared maybe more than any other towards a single player experience. And maybe if people are happy on there with a very small community, and it's not costing Broadsword too much to keep the server alive, then maybe it's not so much at risk of getting turned off again. I don't know. But ultimately, again, I would just love to hear more open discussion about it from Broadsword, so we know exactly what state this is all in. Again, I love the game. I hope this server thrives. I'll be jumping on there as soon as I'm able to bring over my main characters that I like, whenever that is. And we'll just have to see what the next, couple of years is like for this game. It's going to be interesting with the move to Broadsword. We'll find out, is the game in maintenance mode, or are there patches and expansions still to come? I feel like a huge aspect of that is whether or not there's some other secret Star Wars MMO currently in development. If there is, I think this game might not, receive much more content. But if there isn't, I mean, there's still time to turn around this story. Thanks for watching this video. I hope some of that struck you as a coherent summary of this current situation. And let me know in the comments if there's anything else that you would like to add. But for now, good hunting.